Recently, there's a very common attack against Islam that keeps circulating online. The claim is simple. Islam allows cousin marriage is immoral, right? It causes genetic defects, lowers IQ, and this supposedly explains why Muslims lack power or civilizational success. This video is a direct response to that contention. First, let's deal with the moral claim. There is nothing inherently immoral about cousin marriage. For most of human history across cultures and civilizations, it was completely normal. It was not considered incest, not considered unethical, and not considered shocking. The idea that cousin marriage is morally repulsive is a modern Western cultural taboo, not a universal moral truth. You don't get to take a 20th century Western preference and retroactively impose it on all of humanity as if it were objective morality. Now let's move to the historical claim, because this is where the argument completely collapses. In medieval Christian Europe, the Catholic Church explicitly banned cousin marriage. In fact, the bans were far stricter than most people realize. In the early Middle Ages, church law prohibited marriage within 7 degrees of kinship, which covered not just first cousins, but very distant relatives. In 1215, at the Fourth Lateran Council, this was reduced to 4 degrees, but that still clearly included first cousins. And this is important. These bans had nothing to do with genetics, IQ, or moral disgust. Medieval Europeans had no concept of modern genetics. The reasons were political and institutional. Church control over marriage, weakening clan-based power structures, managing inheritance, and forcing people to marry outside tight kin networks. Meanwhile, throughout the same period, Islamic law consistently allowed cousin marriage. This was true across Muslim history and across Muslim civilizations. Now here's the key historical fact that destroys the IQ narrative. These Christian bans were enforced during the Crusades, which lasted roughly from 1096 to 1291. And despite supposedly having the genetic advantage, the Europeans lost. Yes, there were temporary Crusader states. Yes, there were individual victories. But the long-term outcome is not debated. Muslim forces retook Jerusalem in 1187, and the final Crusader stronghold, Acre, fell in 1291. The Crusades ended in Muslim victory. So let's be very clear. Christian Europe banned cousin marriage. Muslim societies allowed it, and yet during this exact period, Muslim civilizations were militarily and strategically superior in the region. If cousin marriage automatically produced low IQ, civilizational weakness, or military incompetence, this outcome would be impossible. This alone shows the argument is historically nonsensical. And then there's the obsession with IQ itself. IQ is treated by certain Westerners as a magical explanation for everything: political dominance, military power, moral superiority. But history has never worked that way. Power is shaped by geography, resources, institutions, economics, technology, and historical circumstance, not by simplistic genetic talking points. Reducing centuries of global history to Muslims marry cousins, therefore low IQ, isn't analysis. It's prejudice dressed up as science. There are legitimate discussions to be had about cousin marriage, modern genetics, population size, risk management, medical screening. Those are serious topics, and we can address them properly in future videos. But this particular argument, the one constantly thrown at Islam, is not serious. It's not scientific. It's not moral. And it's definitely not historical. And once you look at the actual facts, the stupidity of the argument becomes very clear. Very quickly. Before I end, if you're a Muslim who's constantly encountering arguments like this online, arguments that sound confident, sound scientific, but completely fall apart once you actually examine the facts, I go into this in much more depth in my book, From Skepticism to Certainty, The Doubting Muslim's Guide. The book is specifically written for Muslims dealing with modern doubts, secular attacks, and shallow talking points like the one we discussed today. A free sample chapter and the link to buy the book are both in the video description. If this video resonated with you, you'll benefit from it.